Hey guys. So today I just want to talk a little bit about my experience of being gaslit as an autistic person because I do believe it happens more to us. A lot of the times it's unintentional, but I do think there's a lot of intent behind it. So I'm just going to get into this because it's a little bit of a hairy subject. I am not a fan of gaslighting. Gaslighting is basically just a method to make you doubt yourself. It's kind of like a lie, but a very special kind of lie. It can really screw with your confidence and your ability to trust yourself. I have a problem with people trying to manipulate my perspective to see things and believe things that aren't there in general. It just seems wrong to me, and oftentimes it only benefits one party. Now, you can try to gaslight people into this sort of, white lie territory. Something unfavorable is true, but you try to convince somebody otherwise. I'm not even a fan of that, honestly. But, that's a personal thing here. That's a personal thing. But I do find that neurotypicals think they can gaslight me on things that they aren't or cannot on. And I think this is just a byproduct of simply being different. They don't need to know I'm autistic, but there's some sort of sense of how similar I am to other people. And I really think that the fact that I'm not as similar to others as they are to each other, it results in other people kind of doubting my perspective to start with. Like, I find a lot of times my perspective's not taken seriously, and I think this leads into a lot of unintentional gaslighting as well as intentional gaslighting. It's just not as trusted. Sometimes I find people just default to doubting whatever I say, and they throw some sort of snippet at me that doesn't make any sense. One example is I pointed out that Texas has a food culture, and the person I was talking to was just like, "What do you mean, bro? Food's just the great equalizer. That's what brings people together. That doesn't make any sense." And it's like, okay, you didn't even think about what I had to say. It's just a little bit of gaslighting because like I had something to say, he didn't even want to think about it. But then you go and look at the data, and it's like, oh, geez, yeah, the Bible Belt has rates of obesity that's greater than the rest of the country. There might be some culture there. And just think about America in general and the fact that we like to eat. There's food culture out there. And I guess what I'm saying is, I sit there in the moment. I'm like, oh, did I say something stupid? I guess I should stop talking. And then you go and look at it later on. It's like, no, no, what I was saying was real. It's just he didn't want to think about it. I think the majority of the time we get gaslit, this is where it's coming from. That just inability to really relate to us and just instantly doubting our perspectives. Because, in this scenario, I don't know how intentional it was or was not, but I could say that there's been many times where somebody's trying to manipulate me, and so they gaslight me, thinking that I don't understand something I do understand. They're talking to me under where I'm at, and it's very frustrating to have that happen and see that they're trying to manipulate you for their own benefit. It's very frustrating. It really hits me harder than I think most neurotypicals because there's just this sense of unfairness. There's no justice there. It's just I feel like I'm being taken advantage of for no reason, and it just doesn't sit well with me. But oftentimes, autistic people are also inadvertently gaslit, and there's many examples of this, but one great example in my mind, at least in my own life, is autistic burnout. You're constantly gaslit into believing that you don't have a real issue going on, that the things that are bugging you are just in your head. Like, I've complained a lot about my struggles with trying to belong to groups and just generally how I feel around people. And most people seem to kind of do the white lie, saying that you're not that bad, or, something like that. That's just what people do. They try to make you feel better, but it is gaslighting in the end. It is gaslighting. If I'm struggling with something and I say I'm weird and just have strange emotions that people don't understand and it just ends up affecting me in unfavorable ways, people are going to try to tell me that, no, you're not that weird, instead of just, approaching that. And, this is like the nicest version of gaslighting for sure, but I've had it on the opposite side of things where I'm going through autistic burnout, have so many things going on with my life, like Family members are killing themselves. I have some financial issues. I have to get a surgery. I'm not sleeping. A lot of things piling up. And then the cherry on top is needing to go to a conference and having to present dense material in front of a bunch of people. It's like, ah, shit. I'm like going nonverbal and I need to talk in front of a bunch of people. I told a friend about this and it pissed him off. It pissed him off because he doesn't have to deal with it. He doesn't understand it. And in his mind, it's me making up in my own mind and I'm the problem. So that's all he tried to convince me of. Me struggling with autistic burnout is just me being too sheltered and not understanding how the world works. And that's just kind of how it was treated. And I think a lot of people deal with this in general on the spectrum in some way, shape, or form. And honestly, this type of gaslighting just isn't okay. I don't know how intentional it is, but at the end of the day, it's just having a difference in perspective, and they don't want to try to understand your perspective. They would just try to gaslight it away. And let me just say that gaslighting is one of the worst personality traits in my mind. I'd rather deal with many other things than a gaslighter. I really, really, really don't like it. I really don't like it. Maybe that's because I've encountered it so much. And in some ways, I find it's kind of disrespectful to my intelligence. Like, I'll be real, I'm a little bit egotistical with it. Like, how could you think that I don't know what I'm talking about now because of X, Y, and Z, because you just said that one thing? And it just kind of irritates me how tenuous other people think my understanding of this world is. All I could say that at the end of the day, I have personally been very consistent with how I've reported things, and just because other people don't understand it doesn't mean it's not real. It just seems like a lot of people function off a consensus, and if enough people say some ridiculous thing, it becomes real. Where if a select few, if I shouldn't say few, but a small proportion of society experiences something, it's just not real in a lot of people's minds. There's not enough consensus there. And, well, I just think that autistic people do get affected by these sort of things more so than neurotypical people, as well as we're dealt more of it. So, I don't know if you've ever experienced gaslighting of any sorts. Hopefully I said something that kind of relates to something that you've gone through, because at the end of the day, you're not crazy. You're not crazy for struggling with your sensitivities. And I believe that the neurotypicals would also struggle if they were in a noisy room and it affected them the way that it did you. You're not being dramatic because you don't want to go to a conference with a lot of people talking nonstop. We know as autistic people that it's a very real experience and it's draining. Draining. It gives me a headache just hearing to the constant noise all the time. And, well, you're not wrong for wanting to isolate. You're not wrong for wanting your solitude, especially when you're going through times like this. And hopefully with time, we'll just get some more understanding, because I think when we start to get understood more, people will be less likely to brush our viewpoint off and default to gaslighting.